So there are very few games I play where the second I finish them, I feel like I've experienced something incredibly special. There's a number of things that could lead to this, from a well-written story, great gameplay, or just the overall presentation of all the game's mechanics. Titanfall 2 manages to hit every single one of those elements, while it being an incredible package, and one of my favorite games that's released in recent memory. All the core mechanics feel fleshed out, and everything from the movement system to the gunplay all feels absolutely perfect. And the campaign also happens to be one of the best FPS single-player experiences I've had in years, and the in-game store utilizes microtransactions in a way that should be modeled by pretty much every other developer in the industry. With all that said, however, it's well known that this game did not get the attention it deserved. Despite its quality, the game was released late 2016 between two of the biggest games of the year. Both were new releases from some of the biggest FPS franchises in history, and one would go on to become an adored entry in its series. Titanfall 2 would go on to sell decently well, but really nowhere near as well as the first game and not even touching the numbers of the other shooters of the year. The next year, EA would go on to buy the developers Respawn Entertainment, and 2 years later, Respawn would release Apex Legends, a new free-to-play and very successful take on the Battle Royale genre. They also would release Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which would be a new, single-player adventure in the Star Wars universe, which was also critically adored, and after playing both, I can say I did really enjoy both those games. I did not love Apex Legends just because I don't love Battle Royale, but I still thought it was a pretty successful take on that genre. However, the future of the Titanfall series does remain unknown at this point, since we really don't know what's going to happen with it, and things aren't looking too good, based on some comments we got shortly after Apex Legends release. So with all that said, let's take a look at Titanfall 2, and specifically its campaign, to see just why this game is so great and should be experienced by everyone. This will also include full spoilers, by the way, just in case you want to go into the game fresh. So when the first Titanfall released in 2014, I remember how excited people were. There was a lot of hype going into it, and the initial sales of the game were huge, even though it kind of struggled to retain a player base over time. Although the game was really lacking in content, the gunplay, movement system, and Titan combat were all awesome, and ready to be fully taken advantage of in a sequel. And the first thing on Respawn's mind to fix the longevity of the game was, of course, a single-player campaign. I don't think anyone really had high expectations going into a Titanfall campaign, but it somehow managed to blow most FPS campaigns out of the water. Let's go ahead and get the story out of the way before we move on to the missions themselves. You play as Rifleman Jack Cooper, who is training to become a pilot for the militia. And in the Titanfall world, the militia are pretty much at war with a large conglomeration called the IMC that's stealing different planets' resources. There's a little bit more to it that actually calls back to the first game some, with a few things from the world and even some characters. Either way, that's your basic setup explained in this amazing looking prologue sequence, and then you get some quick training by Captain Lastimosa, and the plot follows Cooper after an attack, and he's stranded on the planet Typhon, and he must survive being surrounded by IMC soldiers. That's pretty much your basic setup. Captain Lastimosa drags you to safety when he arrives on the planet, and when you make your way over to him, he dies from his injuries, but not before transferring control of his Titan BT-2724 over to you. And now the two of you must regroup with the militia and stop whatever the IMC is planning. It's a fairly basic setup, but executed very well, and it provides a good basis not only for the main plot, but the central relationship between BT and Cooper. And BT, for me, is one of the coolest and most likable characters I've seen in a game in a while. This seemingly really nice robot somehow has a distinct personality that's so entertaining to be around, and fighting besides and even as him is also just as riveting as it is playing as Titans in multiplayer. And kind of watching the relationship between the two play out as well is pretty much for me the heart of the story. You get the impression that Jack is kind of a straight-laced, fairly straightforward protagonist whose main concern is pretty much just getting the mission done. But by the end he forms this amazing friendship with BT, and there's tons of great dialogue between the two and just some awesome moments that I'll get to a little bit later. After you regroup with some of the militia, the plot then shifts to something very reminiscent of Star Wars. The enemy has a large weapon that can destroy planets, and it needs to be stopped before it goes off. Again, fairly basic, but the stakes are present and it makes for a compelling mission. For as basic as this story is, presentation is everything, and the way the missions show it off are immaculate. It makes you care for these characters and worlds more than you probably should, and once again is a testament to the general campaign as a whole. Now let's move on to some of the missions themselves and some of the fantastic moments in it. Just to get some technical aspects out of the way, I love the way this game visually looks. The art style is somehow unique and awesome, and all the environments look beautiful. And we even saw some of that same stuff with the art style and the weapons carry over to Apex Legends, which was one of my favorite parts of that game, so that was very cool. The music in Titanfall is also something that gets commonly overlooked, and for me there's plenty of great tracks that perfectly fit the moment, and even that main Titanfall theme when it's used in the cutscenes and in the campaign is always iconic and beautiful, and I love it. Now, like I already said, this campaign is so much fun, and so interesting mainly because of three things: the Titanfall gunplay, the set pieces, and the level design. The surprisingly heartfelt story is pretty much just the cherry on top for me, and it makes everything so much better. So first off, the gunplay, if you've never played Titanfall, is awesome. It's a unique experience that manages to feel different than any other shooter. This also applies to the weapons themselves, which are all a blast to use and are scattered and hidden throughout every level. This is one of the only FPS campaigns where I've actually been excited to try every single new weapon I come across just because they're all so interesting and unique. Experimenting with what's effective on each enemy is half the fun of every encounter, and I loved it. And I have not even addressed the Titan combat yet, which is also a blast, and I love how you slowly unlock each loadout as you go along, which gives new players the chance to experiment with all of them before they even jump into the multiplayer, so they kind of know what they're getting into when it comes to the Titans. Now moving on to the levels themselves, every single one manages to be memorable, and for the most part I would call every single one incredibly well designed. I will say the first mission is by far the most uninspired, as it pretty much just serves as an introduction to the game's mechanics, weapons, and enemies. There's also the awesome creatures and animals you come across on a bunch of missions that I absolutely love and are a great addition. You run across all kinds of crazy sci-fi wildlife, even seeing pretty much dragons later in the game, which is awesome. It's just a really cool touch, I love it. While the first two missions are probably my least favorite in the game, they still give you lots of really fun enemies to shoot at, and a little bit more practice with the movement system and the Titan combat. Speaking of Titan combat, you also get your first boss fight in the second level with Cain. The boss fights I really enjoy in this game. They can be challenging on the harder difficulties, but I never really feel like they're unfair. And since most of them are with different Titan loadouts that you're fighting each time, they have different weaknesses and attacks you need to be on the lookout for. The third level is where I knew this game was something truly special and where the level design really shines. You're taking out tons of enemies while navigating pretty much an assembly line kind of thing of houses and other environments that are being put together as you're running across them. You'll be wall running, jumping, and climbing all over the place, and the movement system gives you so many options about where in the level you can go that it's amazing, going through and finding all the Titan helmets and trying to find where they are as you're climbing up the sides of houses that are sideways and just all these crazy things. It's amazing, and I've never played an FPS campaign with environments like this, and it made every single encounter tense while also just being so memorable. The next level only continues with this trend in one of the most memorable and unique levels I've ever played in a game. You're given a device that lets you time travel, and you pretty much have to navigate a facility while solving puzzles related to time. And they won't be super complicated or convoluted puzzles, but it'll be something where in the present you have a door that's locked, and if you go back in the past, when the facility was still active, you can open the door, and then obviously in the present it will be open. And just the level's full of stuff like that, and it's amazing. Each timeline has different enemies, while also containing different environments and even collectibles somehow that kind of affect how you play each timeline, like while you're going through the level. They even combine all of this with the wall running and other mechanics of the game and combat to create what I would consider just a masterpiece of a level. I cannot stress how much I love this level enough. I think it's absolutely incredible, and this really was the point where I knew that this campaign was slowly inching its way up on my best of all time list, and overall it's just a fantastic mission. And keep in mind that the central relationship with BT is always being built up throughout these missions, and he continues to be just awesome with memorable moments and lines of dialogue he has. You even get a visually breathtaking moment at the end of the level related to time freezing around you, which is also just another great addition. The beacon is the next mission, which once again lets you loose in a playground pretty much of buildings and enemies as you make your way to the objective. You're also given this fun little gadget called the arc tool, which is not only effective against enemy robots, but also can be used to open the doors and extend platforms and just things like that. Just once again, combining the abilities you have with all the wall running and enhanced movement and combat all in a seamless, amazing way, and it's just awesome always, and I love it. The next level has you regrouped with all your militia buds as you get to experience pretty much the all-out Titan War level. This mission is pretty much different from all the others, but it's pretty much what you would consider the quintessential Titan combat mission as you and an army of Titans fight an enemy army of Titans. And it feels like something right out of Halo. It has an epic scale to it. The music I actually don't love on this part. I think it's good, but it's not as good as I think it is in some other parts of the campaign, so that's kind of one critique I have, is if the music here was a little bit better for me, and maybe I would have loved it a little bit more. Either way, I still really like it. I still think it's awesome, and just the epic scale of it makes it feel so great, and I love it. And there's really just not much to say about this level other than it's a lot of really fun Titan combat, and I loved it. Then we move to the best set piece in the game as Cooper and BT run around on top of militia and IMC ships, just having awesome moments. Getting thrown by BT and using ships as platforms to jump between objectives is so good, and the combat as always is a blast, and you even get another fun Titan boss fight at the end with Viper. You even get a nice emotional moment with BT as he tries to get the power source of the weapon inside of him while confirming he won't leave you as the ship around you crashes and the music's blaring and you don't know what's going to happen. It's a very well presented moment, and I absolutely loved it. You're taken captive by some of the IMC mercenaries as you watch them destroy BT's body. However, thanks to BT, you do break out and he gives you pretty much his memory chip and the seer kit, which at first you think is just a normal gun and you don't really know what it is, and then you get the reveal that it's actually the smart pistol from the first game, one of the coolest and most iconic weapons from this franchise. And I remember the first time I played this, I was so shocked and so happy because I played this before I played the multiplayer, so I didn't know the smart pistol was in the game at all. So I just remember being so happy and so surprised and excited and just so insanely happy that the smart pistol is in the game. And then the ensuing fight you have in the set piece as you're running through the last level pretty much is just perfection. I love it. One of my favorite moments from a video game campaign ever. I just think it's amazing. You eventually call in a new Titan body and put BT's chip in it as you guys fight one last time to the Arc and the forward weapon, the Arc being pretty much the power source for the Death Star essentially. You get your final boss fight with Sloan, and as you try to pull the Arc from the forward weapon, BT is badly damaged, and you just get a great moment that a lot of people probably saw coming, and I also figured there was a good chance this was going to happen, but BT sacrifices himself to destroy the weapon and pretty much save an entire planet of millions of people. And that moment where he throws Jack to safety is awesome, and just the entire presentation of the last, I don't know, 10-15 minutes of this game is great, with BT's dialogue, the first-person cutscenes, and once again the music here is phenomenal. Then to end the game, you get a crazy set piece as you wall run, slide, and jump through all this debris, and just, it's a really cool moment that I really love, as the planet is about to explode around you, and you make it to a ship, and that's where the game ends. Except not really, because there's also a post-credit scene where you see Jack's helmet receive some sort of message that when decoded says Jack, so is BT somehow alive down there? Maybe, but it's just a tease, so I don't know, and also the chances of us getting a Titanfall 3 are very slim, and even if we did, would it still be about Jack and BT? Who knows, and I wouldn't think too much about it. It is still a cool tease though, that kinda gets you excited and obviously really interested in playing a third Titanfall game. But yeah, honestly, just going through and playing all of this again, and just talking about it, made me want to replay it again even though I just did it twice for this video, and I don't think they could have possibly really much made a better Titanfall campaign. So Respawn knew what made Titanfall special. It was the gunplay, the enhanced mobility, and of course the Titans. They leaned heavily into all of these aspects and went far above and beyond what anyone expected for a campaign. There was no reason to expect levels as well designed as Into the Abyss or Effect and Cause, and there was no reason to expect levels as grand and epic as Trial by Fire or the Ark. I never thought the last level would have me as hyped as it did to use the smart pistol again only after 2 years, but it somehow did. And I definitely didn't expect a heartfelt story set in this gigantic war about the relationship between a robot and a random militia rifleman. But it all comes together in a remarkable package that is so incredibly cheap now that you're actively doing yourself a disservice by not playing it. Even if you've never played it and watched this entire video, still, go out and play it. There's so much that I didn't mention here just because I didn't want to say absolutely every small detail that I still loved, and I also didn't really have time to. I guess I will go ahead and mention the 2 changes that I probably would have made to this campaign. First being the length. It clocks in at around 6 hours, and that's just simply I wanted more. Respawn is so clearly skilled at making campaigns that I wanted just so many more missions from them, and I would have loved to see what else they would have done. I also would have liked if there was an upgrade system of some kind for Jack. It would have been a cool way to incorporate other gadgets from the multiplayer and given the player a way to work towards something that affects pilot gameplay throughout the campaign. Besides that, I think this campaign is a masterpiece. There's small details littered throughout that when combined with the amazing detail of it all makes it one of the best FPS campaigns of the last few years. So guys, don't forget to tell me in the comments below what you all think of the Titanfall 2 campaign, and once again, play it if you have not already. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Thank you all for watching. Majestic Gaming.